I'm Mel Stewart, and this is the SwimSwam Podcast. Joining me today is a three-time Olympic gold medalist, a USA Swimming Foundation ambassador, and the voice of swimming, NBC's voice of swimming, Rowdy Gaines.
Hey, Mel. How's it going, buddy?
I know that things are getting crazy right now, but I want people out there, if they're listening, this conversation is going to be, hey, buddy, we're coming up on an 8th Olympic Games, and your 8th spin in the chair, and you've been doing this for so long. I was hoping that we could bring listeners inside your world, and it's like, what is it like when their behind is in that chair? Just out of curiosity, I mean, I've probably asked you this over the years, but you started with the triple cast in 1992. Did you have nerves? Were you someone that was scared when you took your spin in the chair and you had to overcome that fear, or was it just like, it's just like diving in the pool and swimming?
The biggest fear I had, Mel, was actually 2 years later. 92 was, like you said, the triple cast, because it was kind of ahead of its time, right? It was 3 different channels. You're too young to remember. 3 different channels, Olympics 24 hours a day. And it really was a great opportunity to kind of cut my teeth, so to speak, in doing something that was live all the time. We called every single prelims. We called every single finals, every 1,500. And it really helped me tremendously as far as experience goes, because I didn't really know what I was doing. And I think if I would have gotten over the air job in 92, I don't think I would have called another Olympics. It was that difficult. And I'll tell you why. Look at Mike O'Brien and Mary Wade. I love Mike and Mary. They're wonderful people, but that was pretty much it for them. And it was really unfair to them because they had just retired. They had just come onto this scene where they were just thrown into this world of unknown. It was really unfair. And I'm glad I didn't end up like that. So for me, a little peek behind the curtain for my personal feelings about 92, I think it was perfect for me. The nervousness really happened in 94 when I auditioned for 96. I had to go to an audition with Greg Gumbel, and they didn't tell me what race. Did you do that too in 94?
No, I didn't do it. I was under contract with ESPN. And it was that was something that no one really knew about.
Oh, that's right.
I signed with them and did an adventure show, and I'm like, we can take a sidestep from this and explain this to people, and you might be able to give some advice to Olympic peers or anybody out there who wants to do this kind of stuff. I made a big mistake early on, which was I didn't want to be a part of swimming. I was like so fed up with swimming.
I remember that.
And
you stepped away from it for a while.
To do something else was very inviting. I think that a lot of swimmers do that. You didn't make that mistake. 1985, after 84, Rowdy Gaines was engaged and there, and your love for the sport has always been consistent, and I don't know how you do it.
Well, I mean, swimming changed my life, Mel. I mean, we won't get into the stupid details of my existence, but when I was 17 years old, I was a bit of a wayward kid and didn't really know what they wanted to do with their life, and kind of heading into a little bit of a different direction that certainly wasn't a good one. And swimming changed that. So I owe a lot to the sport, no question about it. But 94 was really nerve-wracking because I had no idea what race I was going to call. And you know what? It's so funny. This is really, you'll enjoy this. I called the men's 100 breaststroke from the 92 games, Nelson Diebel, right? And it was one of 3 races that I knew they were going to show. The other 2 were the 200 butterfly for men and the 200 IM for women. Those are the 3 races that were on the docket. It just so happened I got the 100 breast. I didn't get your race. But I know Matt Biondi auditioned for that one. And I think Bruce Furness, auditioned. And anyway, long story short, I got the job for 96 from that audition, but I was really nervous for that. And I get nervous every single Olympics, buddy. I get nervous for the pro swims. I still get butterflies, and I think that helps me. It helps in my preparation, and it also helps me become better on the air as well, because it gets the excitement level. When adrenaline flows, you're going to do better, right?
For our audience at SwimSwam, we get the constant. Everyone wants you to just nerd it up. They want you to swim nerd it up, and it seems like I always have to step in at some point, or someone else at least does it, and they're like, "Rowdy's calling races for a network, and he's calling races for NBC. He's calling races for people who don't swim." Yeah. And that's a challenge, and it's not necessarily for us. And I know that that has to be a little bit frustrating for you at times.
Yeah, it is. You and I've talked about this, and I get frustrated, but I also understand. The swimming people want to talk more technical. They want to get down and dirty in the weeds, and I get that. And to be honest with you, that's not my forte. That's not my wheelhouse. There are hundreds of swimmers that would be a much better job as a true technical analyst. I admit that, but nobody can deny my passion. Seriously, man, I love swimming, and that's why I get hired, day in and day out, is because my love and my passion, I think, translates well to that average audience that we're trying to bring in. Those people that love swimming and are nerds that you call, they're gonna watch swimming regardless who's broadcasting it, right? I want to bring in people that don't like swimming or don't know anything about swimming, and that's my job. I mean, especially at the Olympics, dude, I have to explain what the backstroke flags are. People, they go, "What are those flags flying for? What are those things at the end of the block? I mean, what are those lane lines? Why are the lane lines changing colors?" I wouldn't say you have to dumb it down, but it's a completely different animal when you're calling the Olympics.
It sounds, since we're on this topic, and I didn't mean to bring it in this soon, but since we're on it, you have had a little bit of a pivot, because you called ISL for CBS, mm-hmm. and that was a little more. There was some more edge there.
Kind of dirty, yeah.
There, and I'm not saying that you were happier, but it sounded like you sounded a little bit more like the Rowdy Gaines that I know, talking to standing on deck.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved the moment. I guess, the whole bubble like atmosphere too, Mel, was cool because it was 6 weeks of swimming. Sometimes we come and go with the meets and everything. Pro swims are only one every couple months, and you got a couple big meets in the summer, of course, the college meets and everything, but there's not a lot of swimming per se that keeps you busy consistently. And the ISL was like, 4 days a week for 6 straight weeks. And you really got into a groove there. So I really loved it. It certainly brings a different dynamic to the sport. And we could get into a whole conversation about ISL and what the future looks like. But I loved it. I really enjoyed my experience. Bernie Gunther, the guy that I called with, we became very good friends, and we've been good friends for a long time. And Mark Foster was just awesome. I love Mark. Great guy. He does a great job. And I think the whole team did a really a stupendous job in Budapest. It was fun.
Bringing it back to the Olympics, your Olympics starts with the Olympic trials, and this mm-hmm. summer is different. And I always tell people that, the Olympic summer is no different from any other summer. We go through a trials meet, we go through an international meet. It's just that word Olympic is in front of it. And it seems like people get nutty.
They do that. Yeah, it's a good point.
They get a little bit nutty, and we burn a whole lot of what I call daylights. You burn a lot of daylights, and it's stressful, and it shouldn't be. But let's just take people inside of your world. How is an Olympic summer run up to trials, through the training camp, and into the Olympics? How is it different time-wise for you? Because I know that it can be pretty intense with the network for such a big telecast.
Well, I don't think it's any different from what you go through in Olympic summer and with your business. I mean, it's just more intense. That's all. I mean, with the World Championships, you go there 2 or 3 days in advance, right? With the Olympic Games, you go there 2 or 3 weeks in advance. You go through the training camp, something you don't do with the World Championship team. You spend 4 or 5 days with the kids at the training camp. You certainly have a much longer Olympic trials. Our Olympic trials for any other big international meet is 4 or 5 days long, and this is a true 8 days live every night on NBC. So there's certainly a lot more to it, a lot more intensity, because it's just the nature of our sport, Mel. Like it or not, you're remembered by the Olympic Games. There are a lot of incredible swimmers that I could certainly name, but that a lot of people don't remember because they never got an opportunity to compete for our country in Olympics. One of our heroes, I know one of yours, certainly one of mine, is Craig Beardsley. And this was no fault of his own, but here's a guy in 1980 would have won gold medal by 2 seconds, and then 84 doesn't make it. And so he's a bit of a blip on the radar, which is really unfair, but it's just the nature of the beast of our sport. That's the pinnacle of success for us. That's our Super Bowl. So the preparation has to be more. It has to be more intense. And quite frankly, it's very time consuming. But I think it's like you, dude, we were just talking about it before we came on air. You're going to be crazy these next 3 months, right? But in the end, would you want it any other way, right? I love that bunker mentality. I love being exhausted, and I love getting together with your team, and you become like a family. And this, just like you're going to have a family the next 3 months. You're going to be living with Spartan, spitting out stories for 3 months that, you're going, holy crap, where does this end? But in the end, you're like, you go into a funk, right? You go into a little bit of a grieving period because you really miss it.
I don't think they're going to love me at the end of 3 months. I think they're going to hate me at the end of 3 months. I think they're already mad at me. You're a sweetheart for bringing up Craig Beardsley, 158.01,
right?
World record holder. So I was, 9, 10, 11, 12 between that, 79 and 1983. So
yeah,
I love Beardsley, and
I know
Beardsley
we all
has
love
a lot
Beards.
of space in my mind. He has a lot of real estate in my head.
Don't you think he has a lot of space in a lot of people? I mean, we're speaking old. I'm sure your audience is going, who the heck is Craig Beardsley? But your audience is old enough to remember, really appreciates and love what Beards has meant to all of us.
Oh yeah. So most people will think, God, I'd like to do what Rowdy does. And it's, it's like, this has got to be the cushiest, best gig in the world. And I know that it is. I know that it's cool. I know that it's exciting. I understand that you appreciate it. However, you do a full day. So, you wake up, what time are you waking up in the morning? What time, how do you prep for each session? What's happening in between the sessions? Explain the final session, and then explain, I want to get the inside view of like those moments where you stay there till 1 or 2 in the morning because you got to voice something over. Explain a day like that.
So let's go back to Rio. So every Olympics is a little different because there's live and there's tape. And those are two huge differences. And I've done both. And I can tell you live is so much better. It's more intense. It's more pressure. But you do it live and you're done, But it is not for the faint of heart. Listen, I'm not complaining. It's like I tell, my dad says it beats digging ditches, So I get it. But it's intense. You take Rio, for example, forget about the lead up to it. But a typical day, we are heading to the pool at 6 a.m. We have production meeting. We study, we go through pronunciations. We go through each swimmer in each race that we're going to televise. And then we're on at 10 a.m. or whatever time it was. We go till noon. And then we go back and we do a post-production meeting. And then we get about 90 minutes. And that's where a peek behind the curtain, Dan and I would literally, and Michelle Tafoya back in Rio, we would find a cot on the floor or some cushions and literally take a nap on the floor. And then we're back at it again by 2 o'clock with another production meeting, and then more studying all night long on the swimmers swimming in the finals. And then we go on at, I guess Rio was at like 10 o'clock at night. And we ended up around midnight and go back for a quick post-production meeting again, and back at the hotel about 2 a.m. And we started all over, leaving the hotel at 6 a.m. We do it for 8 straight nights. And it's monotonous, but it's exhilarating. I mean, it's it's just exhilarating. It's no place you'd want to be on the planet for the Olympics and do what I do. And you're right, it is cushy in a way, but in many ways, it's it's not for the faint of heart, because when I'm on the air, dude, you've sat on the air with me a couple of times. At the Olympics, I have 4 people talking into my ear, sometimes all at the same time. I've got our producer, Tommy Roy. I've got Dan Hicks, who I have to listen to 99% of the time and try to block everybody else out. I've got our director, and I've got Mike Unger, who's in my ear all the time. So I have at least 4 people in my ear all the time. And sometimes they're talking to me all at once. And it can get a little hairy up there, believe me. But it's a lot of fun, and we try to do the best we can in bringing the best swimmers in the world to an American audience.
So if you had those long days, you're rolling into 1 a.m. and they go, "Oh, we got to pick up some stuff. You got to voice this over, or you got to do this." I know you've had those moments.
Yeah, oh yeah, Sydney and Athens, because Sydney and Athens weren't live, Mel. So they were literally. I didn't go after the second day in Sydney. I didn't go back to the hotel. I stayed at the pool the whole time. We took showers at the pool. Never did go back to the hotel because we just didn't have time. It was like an hour and a half drive, and so we didn't have time. We just pitched a tent right there in the edit truck and lived there. And same with Athens, because we'd have to do post voiceovers. We had to do post edits. But Tommy was so good starting in 2004, trying to eliminate that as much as possible. That's why Tommy's the best producer in the business. Peter Lasser, obviously.
You didn't say his last name.
Tommy Roy.
Yeah.
He produces. He's produced every Olympic since 2004. He started in 2004 with us. So this will be 4, 8, 12, 16. This will be our 5th Olympics together with Tommy. And of course, Peter Lasser is the all-time great, because Peter does every single swimming. You know Peter. But Tommy is, he makes sure the dude is tough, man. He makes sure we're really prepared. So we don't have to do those voiceovers. We don't have to do those edits. And even in 12 in London, it wasn't live. And we did very few of those. Almost, I'd say 90% of the calls that you saw from London were live to tape, meaning we didn't have to go back and do any editing. We'd have to do a pickup every once in a while, cleanups here and there, but most of it was live.
You can tell when something is it's not live, and it's not live. There is an element that's missing. It doesn't. There it is. There's something going. Right. There's a strain in your voice box that everybody wants, and it's just not there when you're faking it.
Right. It is. It's hard to fake. It is hard to fake, and I've had to fake it. I've called plenty of races from this little monitor I'm looking at right now. That was done 3 weeks ago, so it's tough, because you can cheat on splits, you can cheat on this and that, and it makes it harder. I don't like it. I never have liked it, but you do it. It has to be done sometimes.
Dumb question. You're calling the races. You're stressed. You're nervous. You're a man of a certain age. You got to go to the bathroom. What do you do, bud?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, I certainly make sure I pee right before the broadcast. I always know where the bathroom's going to be. And I'm pretty good, especially for the Olympics. I'm pretty good at being able to hold it or know when we're going to come back. The Olympics is pretty well planned. So when they're going to come back to you. So you have a chance to slip away for 3 minutes and go to the bathroom. But it has happened to me a couple of times, Mel, where I've had to desperately go, and I knew I couldn't go because we were live the whole time. I couldn't move. So that was a little tricky, I have to admit.
You've experienced the life of a distance athlete.
Yeah, definitely.
You had to make it the entire time.
I don't know how a distant athlete can actually. I could never go to the bathroom and swim at the same time. I never learned how to do that. But some swimmers can. I just never could.
No, I don't understand that talent, nor do I buy it. People say that. Have you had a moment where you called a race and you're like, I got that completely wrong? And I'm not calling you out for Lezak. No, I know that's happened. I know it's happened. It always, you don't have a crystal ball. You get it wrong. But I mean, if you had it, where it's like, whoa, I screwed the pooch on that one. And can you share it in a funny way?
All the time.
That's not an answer. I want an example.
Okay. So, well, I've mis-ID'd lanes before. I've called out the wrong splits. I've made so many wrong predictions on who I think would win the race, who doesn't win the race. Obviously, Lezak is the number one example. Not only did I say it once, but I said it twice. I just don't think they can do it, Dan. I don't think he can do it, Dan. But in fairness, I think that in a moment like that for that race, that makes it even more dramatic because there's nobody in the building that thought he could. Nobody in the building thought Jason Lezak was going to go 46 flat. So, I was wrong, obviously, but in that case, it was pretty cool to be wrong. I think for me, when you do, we called 223 races in Rio. When you call that many races, how many times can you say streamline? How many times can you say he missed that turn? How many times can you say he looked to his right too much? There's times where you just say things and all of a sudden you want to try it, say it differently, and you mess up, and I've messed up plenty. You move on. And I beat myself up a lot on mistakes. I really do. And I probably beat up myself up more than I really should. But I've gotten a few things right before that I feel pretty good about too. So
it's you have to play the prediction game, don't you? You have to look in that crystal ball, crunch the data and do it.
Yeah. And I think why that's one reason why it's so great to have Mike Unger be a part of the process, because he knows so much about the data. And Mike so well, he's a dear friend of both of ours. And I think having somebody like that in your back pocket really helps a lot to be able to help fulfill the mission that you're trying to achieve. And that's trying to really bring the viewer into what that race is going to be like and have them follow who you're talking about because you feel like that's the person you really want to know about. Both from a race technical standpoint, but more importantly, from a story standpoint. You want to build that person's story as much as possible, because really that's what the Olympics is all about, right? It's the same thing for you guys. You guys are trying to build these personalities, build these stories on these people. And that's what's so critical. It's really, people aren't really going to care what Caleb Dressel goes out in the 100 free. I'll talk about that. That's my cat. Sorry.
What's your cat's name?
Nova.
If you're watching video, guy, he has a beautiful.
She literally just dove right in front of the camera.
Kitty.
Sorry about that. So I'm blabbering on like I usually do. Sorry about that, but there are plenty of times where I've made some major mistake. But I will tell you one thing I've never done. The poor Canadian guy remember that in the 200 IM in Rio, and he called Ryan Lochte the entire race as the winner. I don't know if you can go back and watch it on YouTube. I felt so sorry for that man. That was the play-by-play guy, and he literally called Ryan Lochte the whole way. Ryan Lochte wins the gold. And then all of a sudden you hear this huge pregnant pause for like 10 seconds, and he comes on and says, "I'm so sorry. That was Michael Phelps." Yeah. So I've never done that. I've never gone that far, but believe me, it's my biggest nightmare for sure. Unfortunately, I'm not play-by-play. Dan takes care of that part. So if he messes up, I'm just following right along with him.
We should just dig that clip out and put it on this at the bottom below this podcast as to no one can ever feel bad when they take a spin behind the mic, because this is the benchmark right here.
That's right. I felt terrible for him because I know how he feels, man. You get it in your mind, but I don't think you know what? I don't really blame him as much as I blame the people that were producing. Somebody should have been yelling in his ear, "That's not Mike. That's not Ryan Lochte. That's Michael Phelps." And nobody did that for him. So he's got it in his mind. And so I felt bad for him.
I would like to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty and get granular, but not at this point. I still have dumb questions. Have you ever been on a telecast, an important one, of Worlds or Olympic Games, and you've got the giggles? Because you got the giggles. Because sometimes you get the giggles and you can't lose them. Have you ever experienced the giggles and it's like it interfered with your call?
And that reminds me of that old, of course, you're too young to remember that old Mary Tyler Moore show where she got the giggles in the church in the funeral, and she couldn't stop giggling. No, you know what? I will say that's never happened. I'm trying to think. No, that's never happened to me. But I hate you now for even planting that seed because just shows you that this summer I'm right in the middle of the Olympic trials, 200 freestyle for women. I'm going to start having the giggles. But no, I've never had that.
Probably too much of a pressure cooker. I think that with everyone talking, if you get your IFB in, everybody's in your ear. You're always thinking ahead. You're trying to stay present on what you're doing, so you call it right. And you're always thinking, it's not going to happen.
So there was one time I had the giggles a little bit. It wasn't during a World Championships or Olympics, but it was when I interviewed Melanie Margalis. Well, we interviewed it. It was my partner and I. We interviewed Melanie after a race, and the microphone, on the race before that, the mic broke, so she couldn't hear. Excuse me, the earpiece broke, so she couldn't hear us on the headset. It wasn't Melanie; it was somebody else. And so Melanie got wind of that. So on her race, when we interviewed her, she pretended like she couldn't hear us. And we're sitting there going, oh no, the headset still doesn't work. I'm so sorry. And then she started bawling, laughing, going, I fooled you, Rowdy, gotcha. And so after that, I had the giggles for a little while. And I think Jason Knapp was one with me. I go, and I was still laughing on the next race. I go, I'm sorry, Melanie really got us. I mean, I couldn't stop laughing about it, but nothing in a big race. She did get us.
So we're on the run up to Olympic trials. We're on the run up to the games. And do you start research weeks, months in advance? I know that you're in a sense, you're always researching because you're always present throughout the pro swim and you're always watching the news. But is there a moment where you're like, I'm studying for exams, I've got to go into the vault?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately the Olympic year, you're busier anyway with more, work, and the Olympic trials certainly helps with that. And yeah, you just do more work. You read your site, you read every story you can get your hand on, and you try to prepare the best you can. I call a lot of the athletes. I talk to them. I text back and forth with them. Everybody's been really kind in that. I just texted Caleb a few days ago. It helps. And I try not to bug them too much, but, every once in a while I want to know something like, what was it like swimming in lane 8 in Mission Viejo on that one race, the 100 fly, I think it was. So I like to come back to that. But I think, Mel, the bottom line is experience comes into play, meaning experience of doing it over and over again during the Olympic year, especially with Olympic trials, because Olympic trials, you and I both will be, slammed, working our butts off. And that helps. That'll help prepare us for the Olympics.
Through the bulk of your career, you covered the greatest Olympian of all time. And now he's retired. Michael Phelps is, of course, we're talking about Michael. And if you'd asked me, I would say, we're going to have an Olympics where it's not quite the same. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It looks like Michael retired, and then this other guy steps into his shoes, and this could be a really special Olympics for Caleb. It's behind the scenes in terms of production. It's the way I look at it is, when you have a star that's that big, like a Michael, and Caleb is gonna be on that platform this summer, I think that the television time is the equivalent of being like a network series star. You get that amount of time on camera for the world, and so Caleb's going to get that this summer. Is that something? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, he's just going to be that poster boy. I mean, like you said, Michael's been that guy for the last 4 Olympic Games anyway, and it's going to be a completely different look and feel this Games. Caleb's got a lot of pressure, but he's similar in Michael in many ways in the fact that he's so good at having a plan and sticking to the plan. And when Dan and I got to interview Michael over like a 3-day period for this documentary that we did with him. You know, it really was a peek into his work ethic, you know, and his plan. He just, especially with 08, that the way he was able to stick to the plan. And I think that's what Caleb's been able to do. The problem with Caleb, and it's not Caleb necessarily, it's just a perfect storm has to happen again, you know, for even him to think about 7, because he's got, you know, those 3 individual events, he's got 4 relays, but the relays have to be good. I mean, think about what Michael with 1/100th of a second in the 100 fly, and Jason on the relay. It was that perfect storm. So I'm not sure that will ever happen again. But he's our guy, right? Who's the cover of your magazine coming up in 2 months, or is that a surprise?
It's going to be Caleb.
There you go. So
it's
of
good.
course,
Yeah.
you know, he's the star, and he should be. I mean, he should be the star. He deserves to be the star. And he's a really good guy. He's a tremendous young man, and I hope he wins 7 gold medals. That's what I hope.
Yeah, me too. In terms of the in terms of just fans sitting on the couch and having that couch experience for trials for the Olympic Games, is there something? It's like if you could sit on that couch with them instead of just being Rowdy the announcer, you could sit on the couch with them and eat the popcorn. What, you know, and say, you know, you might be watching Caleb, but what you ought to really be paying attention to is this. This is a story I'd pay attention to. I don't know if it's going to get the kind of airtime it deserves. Do you have a story like that in your head? You're like, God, I wish this were a bigger story, but.
You know, sure. I mean, when you think about, and that's one of the criticisms that I get personally, Mel, is the fact that, you know, I'm busy talking about, let's just say, Michael Phelps, and here's the guy over in lane 6 that goes his best time by 2 seconds, and I didn't even mention his name, you know. And that's what I would be able to do sitting on the couch with somebody, you know, is you really need to watch, you know, Townley Haas. He just went his best time, and it really got overlooked with Michael and what he did, or whatever the case is. And that's what I miss. But I have to call what I see, right? I can't call what I'm looking at in the pool. In fact, another peek behind the curtain, about 90% of my call, 80% of my call comes from this monitor right here. I don't even look at the pool. Rarely do I look at the pool, because I have to call what you're watching on TV. I can't be calling the guy in lane 8 if we're seeing lane 4, you know, if we're watching Michael, or Caleb, or Katie, you know, especially with Katie. You know, how do you talk about anybody else with Katie swimming? It's hard because she's out of the picture and you have to follow the leader. So yeah, there's plenty of times where and Leah Smith is a great example of that in 2016. Here's Leah going 401 or 400 or whatever she went in the 400, and just completely overlooked. And I think I tweeted that the other day, that I just am so much appreciative of Leah and what she's been able to accomplish during her career. And it's gone unnoticed, and it's unfair, but it's reality when you're dealing with the GOAT, somebody like Katie or Michael and perhaps now Caleb.
For the fan that's sitting there, I know that a lot of people like to play the prediction game, and just as a side note, I played the prediction game already with Katie Ledecky, and I predicted at trials, you know, she'd go 154, like 5 in the 200 meter free. Well, at Mission, she went at what, 154.4?
Something like that, I think.
So I redid that prediction.
So much for that.
I redid that.
That's prediction. A good prediction, by the way. 154.5 is a pretty good prediction.
But she made me look like an idiot.
I know. Well, she makes all of us look like idiots. So just get in line.
Yeah. Is there someone that you expect that's going to pop, that's going to do something that's unusual? It's what I think about athletes like Shane Cassis. This guy is all this new talents on the bubble. Claire Curzan,
Tori Husk,
they're just it's.
And then we forget about like an Alex Walsh or oh my gosh, Katie Douglas from Virginia. I mean, who really haven't done much long course yet, but are going to just knocking it out of the park, this summer. I think the women's team is unbelievable, dude. We have a really good, I shouldn't say we, that's another thing that we're taught. The U.S., I need to start getting in that mode, right? The U.S. has an incredible women's team. The men's team certainly is good. They're great. But they don't have the depth like the women. I was talking about it. It was you or somebody the other day about like the women's 100 back. It's just, I mean, the woman that finishes sixth could win a medal, and she's not even going to go. It's just ridiculous. The women's 400 IM is ridiculous. It's just, I just feel really, really bad for. That's why the trials is just so dramatic in so many ways. And you and I have both been there, both personally, and we've observed it now for the last 40 years. Or I've observed it 40 years anyway.
I'm not going to say
30.
Did you watch British trials? The UK trials?
I did.
Duncan Scott. They had two UK stars. Yeah, Duncan and went a 144 and
Tom Dean. Yeah, I know, crazy. I think I think I read it on your site that I think the add up is like 7 minutes. So, and the Russians, it's just, but it's one reason why the U.S. has been number one since 1956. I get arguments from my Australian pals about, well, it was back in 2003 we were number. No, they haven't. The U.S. has been number one since 1956. And any way you look at it, a point system, gold medals, whatever the system you use, they've been number one. And the reason why is because we have this rich tradition of history in our sport that when it comes down to the Olympic Games, we always seem to answer the bell. So going 144 in April is a big difference than going 144 in July.
Truth and wisdom from a man who's seen it so many times before. Is the 100 free, the blue ribbon event, your event, is that always going to be the most dramatic race? Because we're looking at the winner, top two, top four, 6 and 7 and 8. There's just so many calculations in that race.
Yeah.
Is it always going to be that? It's here's the thing, you're calling the race. So you're watching you're calling what's on screen. So you're watching the leader and you're watching who's there with him in second, third, or fourth. I always watch that person who is in, I look 6th, 7th, and 8th in the 100 free. I'm always watching those swimmers because that is, to me, that's the most dramatic and most emotionally heart tugging.
So you're a good example in 92. So you won gold in 200 fly, but you also won gold in 800 free relay. What place were you at trials in the 200 free?
I was third at trials.
You were third
in
at trials.
200 free. I missed it by like a fingernail of swimming individually. And
are you glad that you didn't swim it individually? You think it would have taken the edge off the fly?
I have a very specific reason why I regret my 200 freestyle and my freestyle in general. My coach, as early as 1980, around 86, 87, was when we started doing the dolphin underwater. And I was I was a prep school champion in backstroke because it was fly on my back. So I was doing a lot of underwater dolphin, paying close attention to David Burkhoff. My coach is like, you've got to do this in freestyle. You need to be going, 10 kicks off each wall in freestyle.
Wow.
And in the rhythm just felt funky. It felt weird. But I tried it and I just didn't commit to it. I think had I committed to it, I wouldn't have been 148. I'd have been a 146.
Right.
So I'd have been.
Do you think the transition, not to get technical, but the transition from dolphin to freestyle was the hard part then?
It was,
because you were so good underwater in fly. I mean, you were the best in the world.
I was second to Burkhoff. I got Burkhoff beat me in the 100 back. Excuse me. We took 3 strokes in the 100-yard backstroke at NC2A championships. So I swam next to him, and I
didn't know that. I remember that.
I was convinced I would beat him, and I did not beat him.
Right.
And he beat me underwater. So, but I always got a stroke on everyone because I would kick 6 or 7 dolphins in the 200 fly. But so it was just too awkward. The rhythm felt wrong. Going from dolphin to flutter
to
did not make sense.
Right.
I regret it.
I bet. But who knows? It's like me. I finished seventh. I had the world record in the 200 free, and I finished seventh at our Olympic trials in '84. Didn't even make the team in that. And I look back on it, and I would have loved to have been on the 800 free relay. Believe me. But in hindsight, it might have been the best thing, because not making the 200 free means I was fresh going in the 100 freestyle. And I was at the tail end of my career anyway. So not making that 800 free relay, which was the day before the 100 freestyle, probably looking back on it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise. That's why I asked you that question. If not swimming the 200 freestyle was a bit of a blessing, because you were able to be fresh for that one individual event that you had.
Yeah. No.
Right? The 100 fly you swam.
I swam 100 fly. I got fifth.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
But that was after the 200 though, right? Yeah. So the 100 fly was after. So you'd already won, and you said, this is just gravy now. So
it's so draining. The Olympics is draining. Trials is draining.
It is.
But I know that when you're in the bubble, when you're in the lab and you're doing what you do, it seems like so much fun, and it sounds like so much fun, but it's got to be exhausting. What does your life look like right after the Olympics? What do you do?
Well, from the broadcasting perspective, I sleep for about 2 days. My wife has gone with me on every Olympics except for '04. And that's the one thing that she'll notice. Well, you've slept for 2 days. You haven't gotten out of bed for 2 days. So, you definitely low for a while, but then you get to enjoy the Olympics. That's what's so great about swimming, is the fact it's the first half of the Olympics, right? So the Olympics is 16 days long. The swimming is the first 8 days. Well, this Olympics will be first 9, but it's the first half. And then the second half, you really get to play. Now, I haven't been able to play too much because I've got open water to call too. Which is fun. I love doing open water, but it's, obviously it's live. There's no prelims. It's just, you sit there for 2 hours and you talk about swimming. So it's a little bit of a different feel. And it doesn't take place until like 3 days after the swimming. So you get to enjoy doing, a nice call like that. And then you get to go to the other events. I've always been one to love the Olympics, go to beach volleyball. I've been to basketball. I go to a lot of the different sports and try to stay until almost the very end.
Is there anything that you guys are going to do new with the telecast that you can share? Any updates?
Well, you know that the trials, I'm going to be with Mike Tirico, right? Dan is going to be doing the US Open in golf. So we've got Mike coming in. And so that's, for us, for swimming, I say swimming, I mean swimming. That's cool, right? I mean, he's the guy that's hosting the Olympics, for crying out loud, and he's going to be calling swimming for 8 days. So that part is really fun. As far as any technical bells and whistles, I don't know of any right now. I tell you, trust me, I tell you if I knew. I don't know of any that we're doing differently for Tokyo. It's just going to be a different look, buddy. It's going to be a different look all the way around for the whole world. But I think I told you this a year ago when I was on with you. That I think when we have the Olympics, and it's going to be when, not if, I honestly believe there will be an Olympic Games this summer. It will be the greatest Olympics in history. No doubt in my mind it will be, because it will be the first chance that our world will come together as humanity, as one world. And I think everybody will be starving for an Olympic Games. It's been 5 years, summer-wise, and I think it's something that the whole world's going to be looking forward to, whether there's one person in the stands or filled with Japanese fans. It doesn't matter, because it's, I think Michael told me that the other day. If you can't get up for the Olympics, then what can you get up for, right?
You've been listening to the SwimSwam Podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam Podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.